Hey co-stars, welcome to the video. My name is British Ben, and in this episode we are going to look at 10 features of the space station Deep Space Nine from Star Trek, which is ranked as the 10th best ship in the Star Trek franchise by Space.com. It's okay, Deep Space Nine, even though you're 10th, at least you're part of something. Maybe you can get a participation trophy. Anyway, there's actually a lot of interesting information in the Deep Space Nine technical manual. So let's go through some of it. Here are 10 features of Deep Space Nine. Number 1, formidable size. Guys, size matters. I'm sure you're familiar with that expression when talking about cups of coffee. But the same goes for other things. And when I say other things, I'm sure the first thing that pops into your head is fictional space stations. And Deep Space Nine doesn't disappoint in that department. It is big.
Sometimes they say huge.
Yes, huge, that's a better word. The station is 1,451 meters in diameter, which is basically almost a mile wide, and it's 969 meters high, which is almost a kilometer in height. If you put it next to the New York skyline, it would look like this, 3 times higher than the Empire State Building. If you put it in Dubai, it would look like this, 1.7 times the height of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. The station had the capability to house 7,000 people, although normally the crew would be between 300 and 2,000 depending on the operation. And although it was big, there was actually a lot of space in the structure for ships to dock. The main area for crew and guest quarters was the habitat ring, where there were 452 large-sized quarters and 231 smaller quarters across 5 levels. Number 2, mining operations. Deep Space Nine was originally a Cardassian space station, and they called it Terok Nor. Its original position was orbiting the planet Bajor, which the Cardassians were occupying. The station was originally a refinery for iridium ore. Iridium was used in sensor arrays aboard Cardassian ships. The element was mined on the planet below and refined aboard the space station by Bajoran slaves, working in conditions as hot as 55 degrees Celsius. The station's outer ring and pylons contained extensive ore processing facilities that could process a total of 20,000 tons of the ore per day. Now, I want to personally butt in here and say that it really makes no sense that they would put an ore processing plant in space when they're mining the ore on the surface of a planet to begin with. The act of processing an ore into a refined material means you're refining down a load of rock, basically, into a smaller amount of the desired element. Maybe that 20,000 tons of the ore per day becomes only 1 ton. Then what do you do with the waste aboard a space station? And also, it takes a lot of power and energy and expense to ship loads of rock, basically, from a planet up into space. Okay, maybe they weren't taking it up there aboard cargo ships, perhaps they were using transporters to get it up there, but that still uses a lot of energy. And then what do you do with the waste product once it's up there? It really just makes no sense. I think perhaps you should go to Ferengi to run this operation. They're the only ones who really understand capitalism in Star Trek.
Whatever happened to survival of the fittest? Whatever happened to the rich getting richer and the poor getting poor? Whatever happened to pure, unadulterated greed?
Okay, rant over. Now, sadly, not everything lasts forever, and the Cardassians have a habit of leaving. They withdrew from Bajor, which applied to join the Federation, Starfleet took over the space station, and those beautiful ore processing rooms went unused. Number 3, armament. Deep Space Nine was armed to the teeth. Great for putting the Klingons in their place.
Oh, I've got 5,000 photon torpedoes armed and ready to launch. If you don't believe me, feel free to scan the station.
The total armament for Deep Space Nine was 48 rotary phaser arrays, 36 stationary phaser arrays, and 3 sliding phaser emitters, as well as over 48 photon torpedo launchers. In reality, in the show, it seems that the phasers just shoot out of the same holes as the photon torpedoes, but anyway, whatever. It also had primary and secondary shield generators. The primary shield system featured 3 shield generators located on the station just below ops. And there were secondary shield generators located around the outer rim. Also, the station's docking pylons turn inward so that ships docked at the top of those pylons would be kept inside the station's shield bubble and protected by it. If a vessel needed to exit while shields were up, it would need a shield window transponder on board with active ID codes. Number 4. Fusion reactor. All Star Trek space vehicles have a warp core, right? Wrong. Deep Space Nine was not like the Death Star from Star Wars, which was a space station, but it could also fly around in hyperspace and go to planets halfway across the galaxy.
We're detecting a massive object emerging from hyperspace.
Deep Space Nine doesn't do faster than light travel, so why would you need a warp core? Instead, the station has a fusion reactor capable of producing 790 terawatts of power that runs all critical hardware. It is located in the lower core and glows red. So if the station doesn't have a warp core, what kind of engines does it use when it needs to move around a bit? Well, that would be number 5, RCS thrusters. So in Star Trek, all Starfleet ships and other alien ships have some kind of thruster system for steering the ship when at impulse or warp, or for propulsion and maneuvering at slower speeds. Starfleet calls them Reaction Control System Thrusters, or RCS thrusters. On Deep Space Nine, these thrusters were the system designed to keep the station in a stable orbit around Bajor. However, Starfleet used them once to move the station from Bajor to the wormhole entrance. The system wasn't designed to move the station across a star system, so they had to use the station's shield generators to create a field and lower the station's inertial mass. Which, to be honest, just sounds like some kind of Star Trek fake science solution that they made up to fit with what was in the script, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Number 6, auxiliary vehicles. The primary auxiliary vehicle on Deep Space Nine is the Danube-class runabout. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the USS Defiant, aka this. I don't want to say it out loud. But that comes in later seasons of the show. At the start, the main vehicle they use for leaving the station and going on missions is the runabout. These are not just shuttles, but actually multi-role starships that are comparable in size to a Winnebago. When Starfleet took over Deep Space Nine, they cut out 6 launch bays for the runabouts in the habitat ring. So the number of quarters was reduced and the rooms next door received soundproofing. The runabouts would then be raised out into space on a pad and could launch from the surface of the station. These ships could travel through the wormhole to explore planets in the Gamma Quadrant. And they were pretty comfortable. We can see from one episode of The Next Generation, which also features a runabout, there's a sizable crew quarters on board with beds for multi-day missions and a table for eating dinner. The runabout also featured a modular cargo bay designed between the cockpit and crew quarters at the back, where different cargo modules could be swapped out. Number 7, Cardassian design elements. Herman Zimmerman and other designers working on the show were originally going for some sort of Tower of Babel type design for the space station. The premise being that it was thousands of years old and different races had all built onto the station over the years with different technologies that didn't necessarily work together. But the concept was abandoned in favor of an all Cardassian design that, according to Herman Zimmerman, was so recognizable that if you were in the kitchen making dinner and you saw it on TV through an open door to the living room, you would instantly recognize Deep Space Nine. Zimmerman said that they decided the Cardassians liked the number 3, so they did design elements in groups of 3. Thus, there are 3 docking pylons and there are 3 rings in the station's design. They also decided that the Cardassians like a style similar to Art Deco, and you can see that influence in places such as the corridors on Deep Space Nine or Quark's Bar. Number 8, docking capability. Like we said, Deep Space Nine was an ore processing facility, so ships would come and they would have to dock with the station to pick up the uridium. So Deep Space Nine has 18 separate docking ports. The ports on the outside of the docking ring were for small vessels about 5 meters wide. The ports on the outside of the midsections of the pylons could accommodate ships up to 167 meters across, ships such as the USS Defiant, and the largest vessels like the Galaxy class would dock on the end of the docking pylons. This is also where ships receiving the uridium would have docked when Deep Space Nine was being used for its original purpose. Each docking port featured an airlock with 3 doors. You only need 2 doors for an airlock, but Cardassians like the number 3, so hey, throw another one in. Number 9, Starfleet upgrades. After Starfleet got control of the station, they brought in a load of upgrades to make it more efficient and compatible with human living habits. Just like you'd need an adapter for your electrical devices if you visited a different country, Starfleet reconfigured the interfaces between the station's power system and Starfleet electronic devices to avoid power overload. They reconfigured the environmental systems to stay at a constant 22 degrees Celsius and 18% humidity. Cardassians like a much hotter, drier climate. The Cardassian computer system was left in place, but had to be swept for computer viruses and malicious hardware devices. And there was a little hack if it didn't work properly.
Damn it, what's the problem?
Then the weapon systems, like we said, were upgraded with Starfleet photon torpedoes, phasers, and shield generators. Docking fixtures were changed and a new antenna was added to the top of the ops module so that Deep Space Nine could communicate safely and securely with Starfleet. Okay, now we are up to number 10, our 10th feature of Deep Space Nine, which is sexual holosuites. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, yeah, that was a thing and it's pretty messed up, but I'm not gonna waste a whole feature on that. So let's go. Number 10, the promenade. Now I know what you're gonna say. We know about the promenade's existence. It's not a little known feature, but what you may not know is that the whole idea for the promenade on Deep Space Nine was based on the concept of a town in Western movies, according to designer Hans Zimmerman. So you had Odo's security office, which was basically the sheriff's office, Quark's bar, which was the saloon, and the sexual holosuites upstairs, which I guess were the brothel. Then you had Garrick's tailor shop. Western towns normally featured one of those. The establishments on the promenade really mimicked those that you would see in towns in Western movies. And in cowboy movies, you'd often have duels and gunfights on Main Street. Well, the promenade certainly saw its share of phaser battles too. Alright guys, that is our 10 features of Star Trek's Deep Space Nine space station. Have I missed a few? Let me know below, or let me know which one was your favorite. As always, please subscribe for more Star Trek and other sci-fi videos 4 times a week. I know, isn't that great? 4 times a week. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Bye bye.